Hi, everybody. Welcome back to another episode of the Silver Lyming. Again, for those of you new to this podcast, I've put this show together to help to spread awareness about Lyme and tick-borne illness, for one. Also, I want to share stories of people who have gone through this and have recovered to help give you hope, but also some different insight potentially into ways that could help you heal your own body if you are going through this experience as well. And again, I just like to share various stories of different kinds because you'll hear how different Lyme can look and how tick-borne illness can affect people in so many different ways. So today I have a really special guest with me, Bill Gage. He works at Gage Personnel, which is a local company here in Berks County. And actually, I believe you're in many other counties as well. You've done quite a great job with your company. And I came across your story, I guess, through your daughters were trying to help you when you initially became sick. And so they had reached out just asking for maybe a little bit more guidance. So if you don't mind, Bill, could you please share with us a little bit more about who you are, your story with Lyme and tick-borne illness, and how you came to be one of my guests here on the Silver Lyming?
Well, sure. Again, Bill Gage, and I live locally here in Berks County for many years, and work at Gage Personnel for 37 years. But the story on the tick disease I got was called, if I'm saying it right, Babesia.
Yes.
Not Lyme's. And it's one that isn't all that common, but unfortunately it's becoming more common. And it's a pretty nasty one as well. But how it happened was, I remember I was up at a golf outing up in Schuylkill County, and driving home that night, I remember thinking, oh man, it feels like I've got the flu. I mean, out of nowhere, it's thinking, oh boy, and so I get up the next morning, I'm not feeling too great. And then next thing you know, I've got a temperature of 103.6, and I've got these terrible night sweats just totally soaking the bed. And that happened within, 1 or 2 days of my first symptom of the flu type symptoms. So what I did was quickly ruled out COVID and the flu by going to one of those local urgent cares. And then I said, all right, well, I'll just ride this one out. And then Christy, my daughter, who also works at Gage, and then my wife, Gwen, strongly urged me to go to the Reading Hospital emergency room. I thought, oh boy, they had to kind of I was not about to go to the emergency room and sit there for hours, but it's a good thing I did. I was in there and they took some blood samples, and I'm thinking, all right, well, who knows what they'll find. But then they tell me about it an hour and a half later, you've got some kind of a tick disease. And they said, you're going to be spending the night. Well, little did I know I'd be spending 5 nights. Mm-hmm. And they determined it was Babesia. And Babesia causes parasites in your body. So I had parasites in my body running around, and you said you could be here for a little while. And I was. So I spent 5 nights in the hospital, and then, they gave me the proper medications, thank goodness. And it probably took me 6 to 8 weeks to fully recover my strength and everything. So that's just a little bit about, well, actually my doctor too, I want to tell you this, and we could talk about it later, but he actually said my body started going in sepsis, which is not a good thing, I guess. So I think it probably might have taken me out had they not had the right medications and had they not diagnosed it correctly. Because what I forgot to put in here, I went to my doctor's office, and my regular doctor wasn't in, so I saw another doctor, and I explained my symptoms, and they just said, well, no, this will pass, go home, no big deal. And well, that's the next day, my daughter and my wife got me to go to the hospital, and was that doctor ever wrong on their diagnosis? So you can't take one person's word. I don't think a lot of doctors are all that familiar with the different types of tick diseases. So you've got to really cover all bases, especially when you're feeling as sick as I did, and they're telling you'll be fine. I couldn't believe it. So anyway, that's kind of how we diagnosed it.
Yeah. And you're touching on so many things, and you're just making me think like, wow, obviously, if you had just gone home and laid there and waited, what could have potentially been the other outcome, which would have been tragic, clearly. Yes. And so I'm glad that you were encouraged, or you knew deep down inside well enough to go get additional help after you were told that it was nothing. But that happens a lot of times, unfortunately, with tick-borne illness, and just doctors don't know enough, and it's not their fault. And we're all specialists in our own right in many different things. And so tick-borne illness is something that's not known by all doctors thoroughly. So it's great that you're sharing this so that people, again, can hear what potentially could look like tick-borne illness and what would happen, and to know when to continue to go seek help if they're not being addressed properly from their doctor. I have another person you're making me think about who has Lyme carditis, was recently infected. Her heart rate's at 35, and the doctors are telling her pretty much the same thing, that there's nothing wrong with her. So I'm a little bit confused how that can come out sometimes, that there's nothing wrong, when clearly 103.8 fever is something to take very seriously, in my opinion.
Yeah, I agree.
Yeah. And tell me a little bit more about what kind of treatment do they do for that? Because you're the first person I've met that had just Babesia and such a severe case of it.
Sure. Well, I'll say this too. They later, after I got home, maybe only a couple of days after I got home, they said, "Oh, guess what? We found 2 more tick diseases in you," and those were called. And I'll hold this up because there's a book that happens to have all 3 names on the cover, but Anaplasma and Ehrlichia. And here they are. You can see the 3 names there.
Yes, I can.
Okay. So then what they did, they had to put me on another medication. I can give you the medications. That's after I got home. And those had put bacteria in my system as opposed to parasites. And of course, the parasites, there's the ones that'll just kill you right out. So then I had to get on those as well after I got home. I'm sorry, what was your original question on this?
That's okay. I was just more thinking about how did they treat you specifically for such a severe case? I would imagine pretty heavy duty antibiotics, or did they do
they were no intravenous. It was antibiotics. Okay. And the one they put me in was called azithromycin, 500 milligram tablet. And then, if I can even say this one, atovaquinone. Okay. And then, so those are the 2. One was a liquid. I think the second one I said was like a yellow liquid. And I think it was once or twice, maybe it's just once a day. And no intravenous. And every day, not twice a day, they would do it's called what they call a blood smear. And I guess they smear it to see if they can spot parasites. And so, I had a high count of parasites early on. And then daily, you could see them going down. And then finally, like around the 4th day, there were no more in there, and which is good news. And then they let me go home the next day. But I had to continue taking both of those medicines when I was home. And then they put me on, due to the other 2 tick diseases, called doxycycline.
Yep. Doxy.
Yeah. Yeah. So they put me on that. So I was still, after I got home, I was probably on medications for another 10 days. So that's what did it basically, was the medications. Thank goodness, today's modern medicine, maybe 10 years ago, they didn't know what cured these things, and they didn't have these kind of medications. But so thank goodness today they have these type things. And thank goodness already in hospital, I give them credit for, diagnosing what my issue was and keeping me there for 5 nights until all the parasites went away. So that was pretty much it. I lost 10 pounds in the hospital. I couldn't keep weight on. I went from 200 down to 190, and it took a while to get that weight back on and to get my strength back. It probably took after getting home another 4 weeks, because I couldn't move, or I didn't have the energy to do anything. But it was beautiful weather. It was June, so I'd stay home, sit outside, which I'm not used to doing, sitting around during the work week. And took me that long to recover. I remember they asked me, when I was leaving the hospital, do you want to walk out? I said, I couldn't walk out. I'd probably fall and hurt myself, and I'd be back in here. I said, I need a wheelchair to get out of here. So that it really, knocked me out. So that's what did it. The technology, the drugs, and the good perceptions of the right hospital. So
Yeah, good. And now, so this was a little over a year ago, correct? This was last year.
It was June 23rd last year, 2022, that I went in the hospital. It was probably a week before that my first symptoms came up. So it took me about a week to figure out, this is what I had, and to get to the hospital. So yes.
Okay. And then I know talking with your daughters, and just for the audience sake, I know your daughters from high school. So I've known your family for a very long time, and it's always been nice to have experiences with your daughters. They're really nice girls. I like them so much, but they had thought potentially you were thinking you had contracted it from maybe at the beach. Do you know with certainty where you were bitten by a tick by chance, or it's just sort of the symptoms began very virulently and suddenly, and we're not sure where the tick came in?
I have no idea. And it could have been, I was golfing down at the Jersey Shore, and and you want to listen to this. So back then, we go traipse into the woods. My son-in-law and I were golfing, and we'd be hitting stray balls in the woods. We traipse through the woods and, find them. So I could have easily gotten one down there. But you never know where these things are. I never saw it on me. There's no bullseye. I guess Babesia doesn't give you a bullseye. So it could have been the backyard. Could have been, I golf here locally. It could have been, I remember walking one time. I walk all the time, every day, 5 miles. And, once I found a tick sitting on my arm. Where'd that come from? I wasn't even walking in the woods. It was, kind of trees that kind of covered street. So there it was on my arm. I always wear a hat when I'm out, walking, because at least I can see things, a tick on my arm. I can't see it if it gets in my hair and my head. So I'm always got a hat on, and especially when I'm golfing. And when I'm golfing now, I put on the tick spray. I was going to get to that. Yes. Yeah. I can't think of the name of what I use, but I slather the arms, the neck, if I have shorts on, all the way up the legs, and even on the shorts themselves. And that's my precautions that I do now. So I'm a little more aware. And if I lose a ball, in any kind of a rough or the woods, let it stay there, so. Yeah,
smart. Definitely smart. And I could also suggest potentially, if you want to put a tick remover tool in your golf bag, if you have one on you, then you would have that quickly there. You can order them on Amazon, or probably find them at Dick's. They have some that fit into your wallet. They're like a credit card shape that you could have. That way, if you have it there, you can get it off as fast as possible. And then also there's another chemical they make called permethrin. And that, again, you could buy at Dick's or order online, I'm sure. I think Sawyer's is one of the brands that they make permethrin. But spraying that on your shoes and socks will give you 74 times prevention against them crawling onto you, because permethrin kills them. So you're basically making a barrier that if they try to crawl across, they're usually coming out of the ground. It will kill them before they can actually crawl up onto your body.
Wow. Okay. Well, that's good to know. Is that something you use too? If you saw the tick on you and had maybe bitten you, does it do any good or it's only prevention from getting bitten?
That'll prevent it more from getting onto you.
Okay.
Once you get bit, unfortunately, the option for transmission of something from it to you exists.
Okay.
It's not like a dog. I mean, I think dogs probably are in the same boat, but they have that stuff in their system that it'll kill the tick once it bites them. We don't as people.
Okay. Well, good. Tick remover and permethrin. Thank you.
Yeah. And for all golfers and hunters and whoever else is spending time outside, that's a really good thing to keep in mind. And I'm glad that obviously your experience has taught you to, unfortunately, take prevention a little bit more seriously, because it's no different than putting sunscreen on. You don't want to get a burn. You don't want to get bitten.
Right.
And you can get reinfected. That's the other thing. It's not just once and done too. So you're not now immune to it for forever from happening again. You can still contract it just the same, different strain, different kinds of things. So It is good just to not get bitten again. How are you feeling now? I mean, are you pretty much back to fully normal? Do you still have any lingering issues, or pretty much everything has?
Not that I'm aware of. I mean, I'm doing 14,000 steps a day. I gave up running about a year or two ago, but I do a fast-paced walk, and every day at lunch I head out for a 4 to 5 mile walk, and then go home and do some more. So no, I'm feeling pretty good. I think everything associated with that tick disease is gone. So
Wonderful.
I may go in for another tick test. Maybe even that Western blot that covers everything, from what I understand. I had that Western blot done too, which I think covers all tick diseases, and I may request that at my next physical, just to make sure there's nothing in me. So, but I feel great. Thanks. Yeah.
Good. I'm glad that you're feeling well. And I'm glad we're also talking about this, just to clarify that the Western blot and the ELISA test, which is the standard 2-tier approach to testing people for Lyme, is only specific to Lyme. It's only looking for Lyme antibodies. But statistically speaking, it's about 50 to 65% accurate. So it's not necessarily a good diagnostic tool to rest your hat on and say, I've done my due diligence thoroughly. There's a lot of potential reasons why that testing can be faulty. One, just starting with the simple fact that Lyme is the ultimate shapeshifter. Its levels come and go in your bloodstream. So maybe some days it's more present than others. Maybe you're on a day that it's not really evident. It makes biofilm. So it basically can encase itself in a bubble and not be detected at all. Those tests are only looking for certain bands, which in essence, my understanding, just as a simple human here in this battle, there are basically 100 or so different strains of Lyme in the United States, about 300 globally. And that test is only looking for maybe about 10 of them. So there's just a lot of reasons why it's not necessarily the best. Also, in the early 2000s, they had come out with a vaccine to block certain bands that people could contract. Unfortunately, that vaccine was pulled off the market for some difficulties they were having, potentially maybe giving people Lyme versus protecting them from it. And so they never put those bands back into the test requirement either. So those went to the wayside, but they're still there. The vaccine's not there to block us from it. So you just, again, a litany of reasons why that maybe is not the best. But again, it is only looking for Lyme. And so you need to have a panel specific to ehrlichiosis, Babesia, all the other tick-borne illnesses that unfortunately you have learned firsthand about. And it's also not necessarily uncommon, I think, for people to get more than one infection, which I think is great that you're highlighting that in your story, because many times, again, people are thinking it's only Lyme that could be transmitted to you from a tick. As you've seen, it's not just that. And maybe you don't even have Lyme, you have some other sicknesses. But I believe in the state of Pennsylvania, out of a recent study I saw of close to 19,000 ticks, 1 out of 2 was infected with two or more tick-borne illnesses. So that's not that exciting for us here as residents in Pennsylvania. The odds of contracting something if a tick does bite you are fairly substantial. Something else I thought maybe to just share with you is transmission rate differs. So where I'm encouraging you to get it off of you as fast as possible, it really is a time-sensitive thing. There's a virus called Powassan that's been coming down more from Hudson Valley, and it's definitely in our area. And that one takes only 15 minutes to transmit to people. So it causes hemorrhagic fever. It can be fatal. It's a mess. So the sooner that you notice the tick is good. Get it off of you as fast as possible. You want to get it as close to the base where its mouth is and your skin as you possibly can. Lift it straight off of you. Again, they have specific tick tools that would help you through that process, and just clean the area. If you find the tick, save it. You can put it into a plastic baggie with a moist cotton ball, put it in the freezer, save it to get tested later. Or if you're like me, you'll send it in for testing right away to see if it was sick with any kind of infections. There's a place in Pennsylvania through East Stroudsburg University, ticklab.org would be their website. And you can always contact me if you need help with this later. and they will test that tick for free to see if it has any specific set of sicknesses. And then you can pay a little bit extra to get like a full panel testing of the tick, which I would probably encourage. It was only like $50 or something, but you'll get the results within 72 hours. And then that will give you enough guidance as to whether you should probably begin antibiotic treatment or not. Again, in your case, you had much more virulent strain where you needed antibiotics immediately. Sepsis is being septic is no joke. Like, I don't think you'd want to have that problem. And
a quick question though. If in fact you see the tick and you're near, you can like rubbing alcohol, would it be wise maybe to put a big dab of it on like with a cotton ball and try and get it to weaken before you pull the tick off? Good
question. No, because what happens when we do this is when the tick latches onto you, it has a barbed mouthpiece. And so it's designed, it secretes a numbing agent. You won't even feel it bite you, but that mouthpiece is designed to stay in you. And so it begins then regurgitating its stomach contents as part of the feeding cycle, which is what makes us sick when it passes those sicknesses into our bloodstream. So when we actually do things like that, it panics the tick, which just makes that regurgitation process go faster. So you really don't want to try to suffocate it or smother it with anything or like back it out, twist it. Don't squeeze it. Because again, you're just going to make those contents of its stomach come out faster, which can just make you a lot sicker quicker. Best bet again is just to do your best to stay calm. And I always think I'm like, oh, it'd be so easy to pull it off my hand, but it can be in some funky places that you can't really readily reach. So you may need to get a friend to help you or loved one, to help you. And that's why it's really important to check your body every day. As you know, they're so small and it can be a challenge to detect them. I do this. I talk to people about this all the time. And 3 years ago, I found one on my arm. It was so small. Gratefully, I noticed it. I thought it was a speck of dirt and it wouldn't come off. And I got that hot, sick feeling. But I took a pic. Well, I got it off. It wasn't fully attached. Put it on a paper towel. And then I had to take a picture and blow it up because I couldn't see it. But once I blew it up, then I could tell that had legs. And I was like, you've got to be kidding me. So they're just so small, which is a lot of the problem. Again, you don't feel them. They're small. They say with men, however, usually you might feel them more so than women because you have leg hair and you can feel them crawling on you, which has tempted me many times to grow mine, but I haven't quite gone there yet.
Barrier.
Yeah, exactly. It's like a natural detection system because they're so small. I've had them on me many different times and gratefully most of the time I've not had them be attached, but that's another thing I'm thinking of. The longer they are feeding on you, the fatter that they're going to get, the more engorged they'll get. And typically speaking, based on how fat it is, you might be able to have an idea of how long it was attached to you too. Because again, the longer they're attached to you, the greater your chance of transmission of some kind of sickness from it into you.
Okay.
Yeah. So, well, I'm really glad that you were able to get help right away again, because I know talking with your daughters, that was very scary. You were starting to shut down organ level system in your body. Some of the results that they had shown me from what was going on with you was not good at all. And I felt terrible for you because I know we have another mutual connection and she does a lot of stuff with Lyme awareness. And I know she was also trying to help your family and she and I were kind of in communication about things and just afraid, fearful for you and your outcome of what could potentially happen because but with tick-borne illnesses, it can be fatal. And a lot of people, I think, don't quite grasp the severity of it. I don't know what your impression was. That's a good question. What was your impression of Lyme and tick-borne illness? Or did you even know there were other things besides Lyme that a tick could transmit to you before your experience?
No idea. You always think of Lyme's and that's it, and then there's all kinds of them, and I got 3 that weren't Lyme's disease. So it was all new information to me. So yeah, no idea.
Yeah. So again, I appreciate your time to do this because it just helps educate people. We are in the highest rate of infection state for 11 years in Pennsylvania. I don't know if people understand that either about PA, but we are prime tick zone. And there are many reasons for that. We have the great environment for it. Ticks need moisture to survive. we think about the green belt around the globe, basically the middle sector where we have 4 seasons and, leaf matter, things like that make perfect places for ticks to hang out and hide. So you want to make sure you keep your property clean, stay out of the long woods like you're figuring out with golf. It's not worth it. And there are certain things you can do for your property to keep it more protected. But again, living in the state of Pennsylvania, the highest rate of infection state, it is really important for people to understand it's more than just Lyme that you can get. And it can, again, be expressed in so many different ways. And Bill, your story is like one of the most intense in a sense for me, that from how sick you got so fast right away and how virulent that was. Like, I'm just picturing the most sick little tick ever that bit you and infected you. So do you have any, do you do any kind of support for yourself with like probiotics or anything from having taken all those antibiotics? Is that something that you've considered potentially?
No, I should, but no, I mean, I take vitamins and fish oil pills and CoQ10, but no, I've never really looked into that. And I'm sure there are good things out there that you can take, but I never really considered it. So maybe you can talk to me about that later on. So
yeah, just a consideration. I can shoot you over. I use something called Protren, and I can shoot you over the stuff that I've been taking and having. Actually, I feel a lot of success at rebuilding my gut. But just a consideration, as an afterthought to taking such heavy duty antibiotics, your body might appreciate you trying to help it repopulate that in a healthful way. So
I'm open to that. Yeah.
Well, this is great. Go ahead.
Yeah, I just wanted to tell you, I had a friend that was just in the hospital. He was in for 10 nights and he didn't really want to talk about it. And I'm not sure what the tick disease was, but he was in, and I had no pain. I was just flat out going into sepsis. He was in so much pain for 4 nights, he couldn't sleep. And he still got these nerve damage from what it was. I've got to get him to talk to me. I actually sent him your information and it was like an hour-long talk about, the tick diseases and things like that. So whether he contacts you, I don't know. But anyway, 4 nights he couldn't sleep. That's how much pain he was in. So I guess these ticks come in all forms of diseases, and it's kind of scary, actually. So, yeah.
It is. And so that's just what you have to think about is like, I don't want people to be afraid. I just did a talk last night to a group and afterwards they were like, thank you. This was so informative. You've now given me nightmares. I'm like,
yeah, right.
I don't want people to be that afraid of it because typically then you're going to probably draw it to you. We draw to us what we think about. So if we're constantly afraid, like that just heightens that connection to it and more likely to bring it to you. I don't want people to be afraid of it. I want people to be aware. I want people to know some steps that they can do, again, to take prevention, like you're mentioning. Proper dress, right? You can wear long pants, tuck them into your socks. Who cares if you look like a goofball? The worst outcome. I don't care what I look like. People think I'm a nutball half the time. I don't care. You can put a hat on, long sleeves, light colored clothing, again, using repellent. When you come in from outside, you should take your clothes off and put it into the dryer on high heat for a minimum of 10 minutes. I've often been told 20 because that heat will dry out the tick and kill it. So perchance it's on your clothing because there's, again, so small. You want to get in the shower within 2 hours of being outside to rinse them potentially before they latch onto you. And again, teach your family. I know you have grandchildren and children. I'm sure that they're much more sensitive to it now after what you've gone through, but check yourself every day between your toes, your belly button, your groin, behind your knees, your hairline, your ears. These are all places that they tend to gravitate more towards latching onto us at. And again, groin area is one that we probably can't see so good. Get yourself a good full length mirror, not to be a weirdo. Bend over, do whatever you got to do. Ask someone to look for you because that's a lot of times I find that's where people have them is in that area. And again, I can't imagine. I'm knock on wood. I don't ever have one there, but how are you going to get that off?
Yeah. I've heard of guys who have, and they realize this big swollen thing down there that the tick, so yeah. Yeah. So it's just good to be aware. And again, don't live in fear about it, but to be mindful. I've got PTSD over my own experience and I struggle to go outside
from things, because I look and I'm like, oh, I wonder how many ticks are out there. It sucks. It's not a fun way to be.
Lastly too, I talked to the people over at the hospital, and they have the Reading Hospital Foundation, and I realized after it all happened, they have what they call a grateful patient. So I wrote, and I sent you what that letter said, but how grateful I was to the Reading Hospital, and I included everybody, the emergency room and the nurses and the infectious disease group and all that. And then, but I had to pick one name out, and I didn't. So I remembered one name, and so what they do is, and I sent a nice check in too. And then what they do is they have a celebration that day, celebrating the person who I named, and then they take a picture. So they did send me a picture. I can see that there. Yeah. So they always makes them feel good when they help somebody, especially the person if I pick them out specifically. So anyway, and then of course the guy who told me about it, Tony Ballesterio, I think his name is, over at the Reading Hospital. He used to be principal, a holy name. Of course, now he's trying to get me out golfing all the time. I think he's helping for some more donations, which will happen. So, but anyway, I give them a lot of credit for what they did. So, yeah.
I'm grateful that you take the time to acknowledge them for their help, because that's got to feel so good. Like, for those people to see you better, to understand the impact that they've had on your life, your family's life, that you're still here. And just for you to be able to pay it forward in a sense and help others potentially who are in that situation through your donations. That's a really beautiful thing. And I'm not glad that it happened to you at all. But I am glad to see that you're looking at it with a grateful heart, and that you're able to give thanks back to the people that helped to save your life.
Thank you for that. Yes.
Yeah.
Do you have any other questions, or I guess?
Actually, I guess I will ask one last final question, in that maybe we've touched on it right there, in that, could you say maybe what is the best thing that's happened to you as a result of this experience?
Well, the best thing that happened, well, I didn't die, So.
Not to laugh at that, because that's very serious, but yes, that's a good one.
But the other thing is, that I've contacted with the Reading Hospital Foundation, and I'll be giving them donations. It makes you appreciate, life a little more. You take it for granted, then realize something as small as this can take your life away or make it miserable, So, and of course, now we're looking for these things more cautiously as well. But I'm just grateful that we live in today versus 10 years ago or 20 years ago. Would they've even had the medications? Would they've even been able to diagnose what was going on? Look at you. I mean, recently, and they didn't even diagnose it. So, it's one of the best things that happened is it happened now. And, medicine is just increasing exponentially, thank goodness, as is technology. So I guess I would say that. And, I take those 5-mile walks. I think about it, how appreciative I am that I can do that, know that I might not have been able to, or just going out and golfing with my friends and stuff like that. So they're grateful, right? So
yes. And that's a really good sentiment to hold on to. It will serve you well through all of your life, I suspect, and it probably already has in many aspects. You've made a very beautiful life for you and your family, and I'm grateful to know your family in you. And thank you for your time here and sharing this, because this is not my typical story in a sense. Like, a lot of times it is people who take many years and a slow, gradual decline with their symptom set versus a very specific, virulent onset that it's very evident that something is very wrong. So thank you for your time here and sharing again your story, and hopefully helping a lot of people along their way as well.
Well, you're welcome. And I hope we do help some people. Well, thanks for what you're doing too. I mean, the more you can get your word out there and train people, teach people, what to look for, that's great. But I'm happy to contribute too. So,
yes, thank you.
Thank you.
Absolutely.
All right. Well, good rest of the day.
And you. Thank you very much, Bill.
Okay. Bye-bye.
Bye.